My grandfather recently died. He was a World War II veteran and was one of the many to push into Germany. His name was Stanley Miller. He died from liver cancer, which went undetected until the final weeks of his life. Shortly before he died, he called me and asked that I come see him. When I arrived, he cleared the room and told me this story. I don't know what to think of it, but I can assure you, my grandfather's liver cancer did not affect his ability to think, reason, or recall information. What follows is his story. I've paraphrased some things and altered a few words to make his meaning more clear, but I have not changed the narrative of his story. Just before the war ended, we were ordered to capture this little town that we thought might have some POWs or civilian prisoners. It wasn't big enough to have a big camp, so our best guess was it was for high-ranking members of the military that had been captured. I'm not going to tell you the town or the specifics of the guys I was with at the time, but we were told that there weren't going to be many German soldiers in the town and to take as many prisoners as possible. Obviously, that plan wasn't quite followed through when it really hit the fan. It turned out that they had a few tanks in the town as well as some more elite soldiers. Most of them were killed when we took the town, and most of the ones that were captured refused to talk. Pretty soon after we took the town, we found out that there was a research center built into the side of a mountain. There was no way we were getting into it without some high-powered explosives or somebody inside deciding to open the doors. It was built to look like an old mine until you got into it. Then there was this real massive steel bunker door. Rumors started up that there was some real fucked up shit going on behind those doors. And not run-of-the-mill stuff that we'd learned about, but really fucked up shit. We'd heard from the captured soldiers that it was an occult research facility. We got orders to starve out whoever was inside, and we just sat on our asses for the better part of 2 weeks, waiting for the door to open. I was on guard duty when the fuckers inside decided that they didn't want to be inside anymore. I was with 3 other guys, sitting outside the entrance to the bunker when the doors opened. It started as a distant screaming, like somebody was being burned alive. Just constant screaming. We had no idea what was going on. Everybody jumped up and started looking around. Our first thought was that we were being attacked. That's when things started to run out of the bunker. The first one I saw looked like an emaciated, naked man. If you see the photos of the concentration camps of how the people were like skeletons, that's what this poor fuck looked like, except that he was covered in mangy grey hair and oozing red sores. At that point, nobody knew what went on in the concentration camps, so seeing this guy was a real shock for everyone present. The guy stumbles out, moaning and wailing. Then he trips and falls over, and I see another guy behind him. This one looked like him, but worse. There was a tangle of wires coming out of his arm, and half his skin was missing. The skin that was on him, that was yellow with blue gold veins running up and down. The third one didn't even have any skin. He was just muscle and bones and ligaments. There weren't any eyes, just glowing red dots in his face. Then, the monsters started coming out. Something that looked like a dog with giant spider's legs sewn onto its back. I saw a man covered in bone plates, resembling a crab. Then there was something that... it was morphing constantly. 1 second it was a hazy purple frog with limbs coming off at the wrong angles. Then it was a hunched man, running along on all fours, and then it was just a mass of flesh and teeth. It was like television static, given life and tangible mass. Then something like a wolf with a man's legs and arms, babbling nonsense words came out. One of the guys I was with panicked and started firing into the bunker, but the things inside that hadn't ever been human just ignored the bullets, like it wasn't even a big deal that they were being shot. The guy may as well have been shooting a potato gun at them. Something that looked like a floating squid with a torso vaguely reminiscent of a man and so many eyes I couldn't even count them came out. Its limbs were flailing like snakes and it bowled me over. I hit my head when it knocked me down and I blacked out for a few seconds. When I opened my eyes, somebody was dragging me backwards, and men in black armor were coming forwards and capturing the things. It didn't make sense to me at the time that we could fill these things with lead and they could shrug it off. But these men could tackle them down and haul them off. But I realized, that these men knew what they were doing. I think they'd seen this shit before, and were the guys you called in to deal with it. I was pulled around a corner and it all went out of view. I heard later that when they went in to round up whoever was left hiding inside, they found rooms of slaughtered corpses and men hanging from meat hooks. The men in black brought in some regular army men to help them sweep, and it was one of them that told me all this. He told me that there was a room that had limbs and organs and heads and skin all wrapped up in separate bags and in freezers, like they were human pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. There was a room that they found an emaciated scientist in, and he'd written on the walls formulas and theories and equations. There was a whole wing filled with cages and monitoring equipment, all of them busted open or unlocked. The guy seemed to think that there were two parts to whatever was going on in the facility. The first part was trying to turn men into monsters or make men that could be disassembled and reassembled. The second part was trying to get the monsters and whatever else they had in there to cooperate with them and turn them into soldiers. He had a theory that the human guards, or the humans inside, had somehow managed to convince the monsters to cooperate with them and escape. And when the door opened up, they all just ran out trying to get away. I think somebody probably forgot to lock a door, or somebody slipped up and didn't check all the boxes, and some of the monsters got out and caused enough havoc to let the humans inside open the door. Then they all just bolted. I was bullied into signing a non-disclosure agreement at the threat of treason, which meant execution and harassment for my family, and that was the last I heard of it. After the war, there was a big cover-up attempt because a lot of the more useful German scientists that had been working for Hitler were given pardons and citizenship with the stipulation that they assist the US government. Some names got out, but nobody really cared too much at the time. We were all high on victory and the economic boom that happened when everyone got back. And that was the end of my grandfather's story. He died a few days later, and, as per his wishes, he was burned instead of buried. For some reason I got his ashes. He's sitting on my table right now in a little copper urn. The reason I'm putting this out there is because shortly after my grandfather's death, I got a visit from some men. They told me they were government, but didn't elaborate aside from that general statement. They asked me some questions about my grandfather, then threatened me when I let slip that he told me about the war. I only said that he told me about his time in service, but that really set them off. Since then, I've gotten a phone call from a blocked number that told me I would face criminal charges if I revealed anything my grandfather told me. At this point, I don't give a fuck, and it's more just to spite whoever called me. I'm hoping that they won't risk exposure by taking legal action and just let this die on Reddit. But in the off chance they don't, this is everything he told me, and I believe him.